Hey, Shalom, Akim, Shalom, Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, great millstone, for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Akwatham, and listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Requai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will is always an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I kind of wanted to go through and do a part 2 to a lesson I did about a week or 2 weeks ago. And I titled it, it's Tobit teaches Tobias part 2, Nineveh and Babylon, right? So, towards the end of the book, Tobit is essentially giving his son some very interesting counsel, some interesting advice, and it kind of is very similar to the kind of counsel that the prophets and even our apostles and so on and so forth give us, right, to essentially depart from Babylon and depart from its ways, like the scriptures say, not to be conformed to this world, right, but essentially to be transformed in the renewings of our minds, right? So, we don't partake essentially in, the manners and the ways of this world, right? So what I wanted to do, I kind of want to read essentially what Tobit was instructing his son, right? Because the instructions of what he was giving his son was very, very similar to essentially what the prophets, brothers on the highways and byways, essentially is giving Jake, especially in these times. So I want to show the parallels between the instructions and the parallels also of what was going on in Nineveh, and how it's very similar to what is going on, especially here in Babylon the Great here, right? So pretty much one of the key messages from this lesson is essentially to depart from the ways of this world. Like that's what I'm pretty much trying to get at, right? Because this place, like Micah says, it is polluted. As a matter of fact, let me start with that, just so I can set a little bit of tone. Let me start with that. Okay, this is Micah 2 verse 10, and it says, "Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you with a sore destruction," right? So, we understand that, the environment that we live in, right? Not just even the physical environment itself, is very polluted. The air is contaminated, the water is contaminated, the people's minds are contaminated. The culture is a culture that promotes death. It doesn't promote righteousness. It doesn't promote life. It's a very it's a culture that is essentially anti-Hamashiach, right? It's not like the Lord's image is essentially kind of xed out in the society, and the righteousness isn't upheld. What's upheld is essentially wickedness, right? The music is essentially, promotes a lot of themes of adultery. You have a wicked ruler. You have a wicked ruler who's ruling over you. Like, for example, I was reading this article recently, yesterday, in regards to Bill Gates. He wants to cut down a ton of trees, right? Like the scriptures say that the soul that's within him is not upright, right? So this is the kind of things that we would depart from, because this place is contaminated, right? So okay, so let me jump into what Tobit was actually telling his son, right? So I'll start there, and then I'll get into a little bit about what was going on in ancient Nineveh, and kind of and show you the parallels between what was going on back then versus what's going on now in Babylon the Great, right? Let me just jump to the book of Tobit. Bear with me on this. Let me see if I can find it. Excuse me. Okay, so this is Tobit chapter 14. I'll start at verse 1, and I'll just jump around just to make the point. I just want to make a couple points here and there. So this is verse 1, and it says, "So Tobit made an end of praising the Most High Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, and he was 85 years old. And when he lost his sight, which was restored to him after 8 years. He gave alms and increased in the fear of the Lord power, and praised him. And when he was aged, he called his son and the sons of his son, and said to him, My son, take thy children, for behold, I am aged and ready to depart out of this life. Go into Media, my son, for surely I believe those things which Jonas the prophet spake of Nineveh, that it shall be overthrown, for a time shall rather be in Media, and our brethren are, and it says that our brethren shall lie scattered in the earth from that good land, and Jerusalem shall be desolate, and the house of the Most High in it shall be burned, and shall be desolate for a time. Right, so essentially, he knows about what was concerning, what was going to happen to, what was concerning Nineveh, right? He heard about, Jonas the prophet, because Jonah, I should say, Jonah, the Lord had commissioned them to go to Nineveh and, call out the wickedness that was going on there, right? So later on, I want to get some of the examples of wickedness, of the wicked things that was going on there, right? And so let me just jump down to 1 second. Okay, here's the point. I'm going to jump down to verse 8, and it says, And now, my son, depart out of Nineveh because of those things which the Jonas the prophet, which the prophet Jonas, or Jonah, spake shall surely come to pass, right? So, and it says, But keep thou the laws and the commandments, and show thyself merciful and just, that it may go well with thee, right? So this is a very similar instructions, like, what we tell Jake essentially is it parallels the message of what we tell Jake today, right? What, even our apostles and elders tell us too, because to depart, out of this life, because we understand and you see that, through different examples, like for example, you have our people, like for example, like recently our people were just celebrating Christmas and New Year's and all these on high holy days, so to speak, right? Our people get into these different lifestyles, not even understanding that these lifestyles are contrary to the scriptures, are contrary to the ways of Yahweh Bashim Shai. The Lord didn't, create us to essentially look after these different ways. Like the scriptures say that the customs of the heathen are vain, right? So those are different examples. So we depart from those different ways, right? So we're departing essentially, by not following these different ways, right? So it's very, very similar to the message, kind of is very similar to what's going on in this time also, because, we're departing from this Babylon spiritually first, before we depart actual physically. Lord's will, the Lord has, mercy upon us, right? So so I just want to show you some parallels. Like, okay, so let me go to Revelation. Actually, let me get it here. Right, so the message of department is really the reoccurring theme in this lesson here. Let's get Revelation. Okay, this is Revelation 18 verse 3, and the point's in 4, and it says, For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed through the abundance of her delicacy. So a lot of the nations that Babylon is affiliated with, and even pushes forth its wicked vibration upon these other nations. This is why in Jeremiah it says that these other nations are essentially mad, right? Because they don't want these abominable practices. Their women, acting out of order, the men acting more feminine, these different things, these other nations, they don't want that vibration upon their nation, upon their people, especially like countries like your BRICS nations, for example. I know a lot of movies that came out here. China didn't want those movies being played. And I was reading another article. I'll give you another example in regards to Nigeria. And Nigeria doesn't want a lot of those American cartoons to be shown in their own country, because some of their cartoons for children, it was showing us essentially a covert, in a covert way, a lack of disrespect for elders and a lack of disrespect for parents, right? The scriptures talk about honoring your father and your mother, right? These different things, that those different philosophies, that alphabet lifestyle, that alphabet agenda, these other countries, especially in the east, like Russia, China, Saudi, Iran, even a lot of West African countries where Jake is normally situated, they don't want that vibration upon their own people, because it realizes it contaminates the minds of their people, right? In Babylon, you're being ruled over by an unwise king, and like the scriptures say, an unwise king destroyeth his people, right? Verse 4, and it says, and I heard a voice up from heaven came saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and receive not her plagues, right? So that's really the point, right? Come out of her, my people. And that's the same message we tell, our people, like, come out of, these different practices, come out of these different ways, depart from these different ways. Wait 1 second. Laptop's dying. All right, Salakia. All right, yeah. So back to the point I was making. That echoes the same sentiment that we tell Jake, tell our people today, to come out of these different ways, right? And be not partakers of her sins, and be not partakers of her plagues, right? Because we know, pursuant to the scriptures, that America is going to crumble and is going to be completely destroyed by fire, right? That's Isaiah 13 and 19. Right, that Babylon should be receive the same judgment as Sodom and Gomorrah, right? So a lot of these other nations, especially even their own allies, are going to turn upon America, right? So okay, so let's get an understanding of what was going on in ancient Nineveh, right? Just to show you some of the different parallels, or should I say, some of the parallels that is going on in Babylon here, Babylon the Great, and show you the parallels of what happened in ancient Nineveh, right? So if you ever hear brothers say, America is like ancient Nineveh and stuff like that, these are some of the reasons why. Okay, let's go to the book of Nahum. Let's go to chapter 3. Okay, let me get it in another, what's it called? Translation. Let me get it in the NLT. Just bear with me on this. Let me just look for... Okay, so it says the Lord's judgment against Nineveh. So this is Nahum 3 and 5. And it says, I am your enemy, says the Lord of heaven's armies. And now I will lift your skirts and show all the earth your nakedness and shame. Right? So that sentiment echoes still today, because our countries like Babylon, America, that skirt is essentially being lifted up, and people are seeing the filthiness that lies underneath. Her legs aren't shaved. You're starting to see the what is you're starting to see the what would, like, for example, idolatry. You're starting to see the alphabet lifestyle. Like they were pushing that very, very heavy upon the Western African nations. I believe it was last year or a year before, right? They were you're starting to see a lot of essential, just a lot of wicked practices coming out with these different celebrities. They're becoming a lot more overt with their satanic worship, right? And that shows you the decline of an empire by seeing and observing the quality of their music. It's becoming a lot more, even a lot more sexual, like overtly sexual, and even a lot more overtly satanic. um It says, verse 6, I will cover you with filth and show the world how vile you are. So, through that, the prophets that the brothers on the highways and byways are apostles, they're coming out because they are the Lord's mouthpiece and showing the wickedness that is going on in this place, right? It says, verse 7, all who see you will shrink back and say, Nineveh lies in ruins. Where are the mourners? Does anyone regret your destruction? There was a point I kind of wanted to hit. Where is it? 1 second. Salakia, I forgot to read verse 4. This is Nehemiah 3, verse 4 in the NLT, and it says, all this because Nineveh, the beautiful and faithless city, mistress of deadly charms, enticed the nations with her beauty. Ooh, damn. That's very. If you really think about that, you know, um, that same sentiment is how you get a lot of people coming to America because they believe in America, the streets are paved with gold, the money grows on trees. You can get your nice white wife with the blonde hair, with the white picket fence, with the Dalmatian dog, and have your nice house and all that kind of stuff. Like, when people look at America from the outside, it has that enchanting beauty. It has that look like, you could be you could know absolutely nothing and become a millionaire if you just move to America. Like, that is the vibration that that America pushes, like, right, just like it's describing here as Nineveh, right? I'll read that again, and it says, all this because Nineveh, the beautiful and faithless city, mistress of deadly charms, enticed the nations with her beauty. She taught them all her magic, enchanting people everywhere, right? So, it's a place that, is completely filled with idolatry. It's filled with whoredom, and you see that vibration trickling down onto the people, especially the women, right? If you really want to tell the quality of the nation, just look at how the women conduct themselves, right? And especially our women, they don't give a fuck. They will essentially, they don't have that mindset of actually trying to be wives, trying to be homemakers, trying to actually look and guide a household, right? I was reading something in regards to, like, some of the women in Japan. They hold themselves to a certain standard because they don't want to essentially embarrass their household and their father, right? And the scriptures talk about that. As a matter of fact, let me just get a quick precept in regards to that. That's in what's that, Sirach 42. Okay, this is Sirach 42 and 11, and it says, keep a watch over a shameless daughter, lest she make thee a laughing stock in thy enemies, and a byword in the city, and a reproach among the people, and make thee ashamed before the multitude, right? So, this is the way you have to keep a watch over, your daughters. But if you really think about it, America kind of falls into the same sentiment, has that same spirit of that shameless daughter too, that kind of goes around the world, showing itself to be a quote unquote righteous. And then people are looking and examining, the ways of America and looking at what actually occurs in America, and they realize, you're just a shameless woman that doesn't actually care, right? That doesn't actually uphold the standard that you show, right? So, um, okay, that's pretty much it on that. Hold on, let me just see. Oh, hold on, let me just read this as well. This is Nahum 3:13. In the NLT, it says, "Your troops will be as weak and helpless as women," right? And that's very interesting. It says that also because the same sentiment echoes in Babylon the Great with their troops also, because now you have a lot of these alphabet people. You have a lot of these alphabet people enrolling into the military, right? So there's not a strong masculine emphasis when it comes to, the military in America, because this place is extremely comfortable, right? Another reason is that you have a lot of these new generations, these Gen Zers, like they like to call them. I think those are the ones born after 1997, I believe. I could be wrong. A lot of these young people, they don't feel that zeal or enthusiasm to fight for a country that's kind of like, they're kind of like in debt. They don't have that mindset to actually, they don't have that kind of pride for their country, because they also see their country is full of hypocrisy, right? So they don't feel the zeal and the need to go and sacrifice their lives for a nation and go fight across and overseas against other nations, because there's a lot of like the scriptures talk about Egyptians against the Egyptians. There's a lot of like turmoil within their own country, right? So I'm just using Palestine and the state of Israel as an example. A lot of these students, for example, a lot of these countries are on the side of what's going on in Palestine, and how Babylon feels about Israel, right? America is a big supporter of Israel, right? But the point is, because there is so much turmoil and like within the country, these young people, they don't feel that need to go and fight across overseas for the country they live in. They realize their country is full of shit basically. Right? So that also contributes to the way America being weak, America being their troops are being weak. It's not like Russia and countries like China that pushes forth a masculine vibration and puts away a lot of these this alphabet ways and ways that make them weak, on GMO, non-GMO foods and all that. They don't push forth that upon their people, right? So let me see if there's any bit more I kind of wanted to touch on. Okay, let me just get this. Let me go to Jeremiah 51. Oh, hold on. Okay, this is Jeremiah 51 verse 7, and it says, "Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord Yahweh's hand, that made all the earth drunken, and the nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad," right? Those different philosophies I spoke of. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for, and take balm for her pain, if so she may be healed. If, right, there is no healing. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go everyone into their own country, for her judgment reached unto heaven, and lifted even to the skies, right? So it shows you, there's a still a sentiment here of departing from this from this other captivity, right? Just like there was that sentiment of Tobit telling his sons to depart from that, depart from Nineveh, right? Because that sentiment is that there is a massive amount of judgment that's going to take place upon this captivity that we're in, right? So, that's pretty much the point. I didn't want to make the lesson too long. I kind of just wanted to show some of the similarities between that departure, that spiritual departure essentially from, the ways of that captivity, as well as, what Tobit was instructing his son Tobias, right? And showing you the parallels between what's going on, or what happened, I should say, in ancient Nineveh and what's happening in Babylon the Great here, aka in America, right? That departure sentiment is very, very similar, right? So that's pretty much the point. I didn't have anything else, but I sincerely pray and hope that this lesson was truly edifying, and I'd just like to give our praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai Bashem Rakakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us this truth. Till next time, I say Shalom.